Part two of our These the Stocks to Buy. Today we're looking at AAPL, MRVL, GILD, SNOW, and JUSHF. Let's get into this analysis. All right, Apple on the daily time frame. Not giving us a lot to work with on the daily. Real lack of clarity. So what we're going to have to do is focus on this action inside this little range. Even the weekly time frame is not giving us a heck of a lot to work with. Possible weekly equilibrium brewing, but not there yet. What I would look for would be a daily downturn, a change in trend. So it would basically be a daily trend counter to the weekly movement to the upside, in which case I'm going to look for a break out of this pattern. And this again is what I'm focusing on in the short term. For support on the daily time frame, we have an area of support around 112.22. I don't know if we'll get there inside this pattern, but let's take a look at what I'm talking about. On the 4-hour time frame, we take a look, we see that zone of support coming in again, we see lower highs, lower lows, but the trend itself doesn't make itself apparent. What I want to see is this wavy type action that's telling me that we are actually trending. And I start to see that when we get to the hourly time frame. Our distinctive highs and lows are bouncing around. Another way we can validate that we're in a nice trend is when our RSI switches from being relative to the price to relative to the trend, meaning we start to see the RSI go sideways while the price goes down. And what that does for us is it tells us that we have well, first of all, a trend, but it also gives us signals as to when we can start to expect lows and highs inside that trend to develop. So once we hit our lows, we get into oversold positions, and once we hit our highs, we get into our mid-50s RSI. In this case, we can see RSI resistance around 47 at our highs, and then we're getting near oversold positions or oversold positions on RSI when we are getting into the lows inside this trend. So that's just something to watch for as we develop and move further inside this trend. And what I'm going to do is just draw in my little chart here. I like something like this for my resistance, and then for my support. This is more or less the area that I'm trying to define. I'm interested in a trend that shows us about 99% of the action. We can have little blips inside and out. That's just fine. I don't mind wicks going in and out as long as we close inside the pattern and 99% of our price action is contained in it. It works out well, and it's validated by RSI. Right now, we are in an hourly bear flag. It's a little bit extended, but I also see that it can be wedging up here. I'm seeing smaller bodies. So what that tells me is I would expect more downside. As we approach resistance, that likelihood becomes more and more that we're going to see downside in a break of 114.59. That's just going to be continuation inside this pattern. What we're going to need to negate this pattern and get back to the weekly, moving to the upside that we talked about over here. Well, you can't really see that arrow anymore, can you? We're going to have to change this trend. And we're going to change this trend, and it's going to show up in two ways. We're going to either break outside of our pattern, look for a high volume test and break and back test into hourly trend change, or we're going to come down here, bounce off support and do the same, just in a different location. So in the short term, what I'm going to look for is either probably a rejection from this level, a higher low, break over top of that, set a higher low outside of pattern, higher low over top of the most recent low, and ideally a higher high as well. That's going to give us that trend change. It's going to give us that channel break. And those are the two components that we need to see in order to start things moving more effectively to the upside. In short, and in the short term, Apple is in a hourly bearish trend. It looks pretty settled where it is, and it's going to take a pretty big move in the entirety of the market to get them out of this little funk, as SPY has seen some relatively good days, and Apple, unfortunately, is still in this strong hourly downtrend. All right, something more exciting, MRVL. So MRVL had its own little hourly trend here, and today we managed to break over top of 40.98 after establishing a low at 39.84. So a nice head and shoulders-ish type move where we've got our low, lower low, and way up here, higher low. So not a beautiful head and shoulders. But it's the psychology of that move that really, really matters. It's that big fundamental shift from we are bearish, we are bearish, we are bearish, wait. We're hitting new highs and higher lows, and we're ready to rock. So hourly time frame has switched to the bulls, and we've got hourly higher lows set at 40.81. We have gapped up a little bit in after hours. Of course, that doesn't matter too much on volume, is very low, 3,100, 6,000 versus 1.1 million. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Short-term resistance 41.96, and bulls are looking good on the hourly time frame. At this point, it's still 4-hour higher low, so we need to see another sorry, it's still a 4-hour downtrend, lower highs, lower lows. What we need to see is 4-hour higher low over top of 39.84, and that would just look like this into upside. And if we manage to pull that off, this would be a nice little place for the bulls to bounce, and I'd still be expecting a lower high under 45.04 based on the distance that we've traveled from that most recent high. So bulls in a very good position on the hourly time frame, setting up for a nice change in trend on the 4-hour, but it's going to take a lot of proving to get that done. I think a lot of this move is probably on the backs of GILD, which has had some pretty positive news come out toward the end of the day, FDA approval for a drug that I'm not going to try to pronounce, but it's all after hours move. Pretty big volume going into that announcement, and then of course we see big continuation to the upside and continuing to climb even now. 64.98 is the current high, so we're going to look for continuation tomorrow. What we have is short-term resistance right in the area of 65.11. We're approaching that now. And what I would love to see would be an hourly break over top of that, then an hourly higher low, and the development of a new trend. There is going to be some profit taking, and I think there's going to be even more interest in this tomorrow, so I would not be surprised to see a gap up. And I'm not sure where that would end up. There's no point speculating, but you know what? Let's do it anyway. Let's say we open up at 67.33. I'm going to look for a back test of this level. That will give us that higher low. It will give us an aggressive higher low, and we have a nice area of support or former resistance to act as support. And I think that would be a nice place to fish for a short-term entry and a flip on GILD. Projecting longer on the daily time frame. Let's go back. Where are we? All the way up there. Yeah, that's a big move. So if we manage to get that done, we're still going to look for a daily higher low. I don't know when that's going to come into play. Well, that's the most likely outcome from here. So congratulations, bulls, and congratulations to anyone who caught that news, recognized the upside potential here, and managed to sneak it in. Good on you. SNOW, beautiful hourly setup for continuation. On the daily time frame, we see this tightening range, and this is not dissimilar to what we're seeing on PLTR over here on the 12-hour, a tightening range on the daily. So go study that chart for a little bit of information. But on SNO, we saw this tightening range has broken to the upside, and now on the daily time frame, we're nearing overbought. On the 4-hour time frame, we're certainly overbought. 4-hour higher lows, and now consolidating on the hourly. So the most likely outcome, well, we have to believe that the bulls are doing what they want to do. They have consolidated for a while. They're in an hourly uptrend, and they're in the area where they could be forming a nice little bull flag here. If we can hold these lows, or even if we break these lows early tomorrow with a lack of follow through, we're going to be okay. Because that is what a flag is. So if we lose 293.58 without much volume, then we're going to be holding on okay, and we're going to be looking for the development of a bull flag. At this point, I would just look to draw something like this. This is all going to change wildly in pre-market, but there you go. So let's say we come down. Let's ignore this for the sake of education. If we come down and just lose this little trend line, that is okay. We expect lower lows. As long as we close inside, we're going to be okay for a flag. Keeping a close eye on supports, keeping an eye on volume on breaks, and keeping in mind that we have seen a very, very strong show by the bulls, and we just need to consolidate a little bit. Other than that, snow is looking pretty good. No real resistance on the daily time frame except for the high of the IPO craziness sitting here at, let's grab it, come on, 319. Next up, JUSHF. I have never looked at this ticker before, so let's go and get some big context. This is a nice rounded bottom, strong trend here. Do not like this candle. This is a big, nasty weekly candle. I don't know why. It's doing what it's doing, but I do see that we need weekly higher lows. I don't like the fact that we're doing it like this. But 215 is the last weekly higher low, so bulls have a lot of room to play with. Big volume in the last 2 days, daily inside bar. Could shake this off if we manage to get a daily higher low set here at 271.10. And a little bit of daily support below us, 235. Actually, it's a long ways below us at 235 for the last push by the bulls, or bears, I should say. 4-hour time frame. Well, let's go back to the daily. We're going to mark out this daily inside bar because that could be important for us, and we're going to jump to the hourly. So all of that action is in the hourly time frame. Mostly profit taking early on, grinding the support at 273.95. So I don't want to see bulls lose that. That seems to be very, very important short-term support. Below that, all we've got is 271. So if we lose 273.95, we're likely to lose 271 at the same time, because that would just be, well, if you ignore this big wick, let's see if we can ignore it. Can we justify ignoring it? We can't. What I would love to have seen is if this was all in pre-market on a very, very low volume. So this candlestick, we have 100 shares, 500 shares. Unfortunately, this is 90,000 shares. So that's a vote. Every share sold counts as a vote. If you have 1 million shares sold during the day and only 100 vote that it's worth $3, I'm going to ignore that data. But when I see 90,000 or close to, well, 10% of your voters saying, no, we agree with this price drop, that is significant. So we're going to be looking for a break of 273.95, or in the short term, 5-minute time frame, if bulls want to get things together, they need to get over 280. We have seen this come into play 3 times now. 1, 2, and very close at 279. That is a short-term support or resistance for the bulls. If they can get over top of that, then there's some upside potential here. But there's a lot of weight on this name right now, and I'd be looking for a break at 271 and further downside to follow. That's it for today. Hopefully it was useful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. Happy to help. Happy to talk charts. I offered to have people call the number on the website and chat about charts a little bit. A couple of you guys did. So that was really cool. It was good to meet you and good to talk to you. Feel free if you'd like to call in as well. Why not?